Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first lesson on Introduction to Conflict Resolution Processes 1. I am your facilitator, and my name is Antonia Okoye. I'll be the one facilitating this course throughout the semester. And the topic for today is understanding the concept conflict. It is very important that you understand the concept conflict because this is a term that you'll be coming across in many of your courses as a student of peace and conflict resolution. So at any point in time you are asked to define what conflict is, you will just read it out so fast. So that's the essence of this class, number one. And the essence of the another important reason for this Zoom class is for us to meet face to face, so that if you have any question you want to ask, you can ask directly, and it will also afford you the opportunity to meet with your other colleagues so that you can have a good relationship with them. So as I've said, that today's topic is understanding the concept conflict. So we are going to look at what the concept conflict is, so that we'll be able to define it as I have said earlier. So we have three objectives for this lesson for today, and they are to define conflict. The second is to know the different types of conflict, and the third is to identify the phases of conflict. So the word conflict, what does it mean? The first, it is derived from the Latin word configure, meaning to strike together. It also means a fight, a struggle, a battle, a clash, a contention, confrontation, an opposition, hostility, to contend with other people, or to also be at variance with other people. All these words I've listed depicts what conflict is. But we have to have this at the back of our mind, that conflict is a normal phenomenon that occurs between humans. As far as humans are interacting with one another, conflict will definitely arise. If there is no conflict, there will not be any reason or need for conflict resolution processes. So you see that conflict is what gives rise to conflict resolution processes. So before we define what conflict is as the norm in the academia, you have to first look at other definitions that have been proposed by other scholars in the field. So we are going to look at three definitions of conflict as proposed by three scholars. And the first definition is that of Visser et al. Et al. Means and others. And they define conflict as a struggle or contest within opposing needs, ideas, beliefs, values, or goals. They define it as an incompatibility between subject positions. The second definition we'll be looking at is that of Ojo, and Ojo defined conflict as a misunderstanding or aggressive struggle between two or more opposing individuals or parties. The last definition that we'll be looking at in this lesson is that of Mojeko, and it defined conflict as a clash between hostile and opposing elements, ideas, or forces that it occurs at all levels of human interaction in homes, institutions, and amongst groups. What I observed in those definitions is that there is an omission, and all the definitions were concentrated or focused on the conflict between two or more individuals among groups, but they did not address the conflict that affects an individual. And the conflict that affects an individual is known as a dilemma. That is a conflict that's in an ability of an individual to take a decision or make choices, or make a choice from a variety of options. So from this picture, definitely put this picture. This picture, this first one is a conflict scene. And you can see what is happening at the background. You see fire burning, a lot of people are outside, things are disorganized. This is a scene for crime to occur. People are harassed in situations like this. They are molested, robbery occurs, innocent people are killed in situations like this. The second photo that we are going to look at is, let's observe it, closely. We can see that cars are destroyed. As you can see, buildings are destroyed, businesses are destroyed. This is one of the many consequences of conflict. So conflict, if not quickly addressed, can lead to scenes like this. This third photo, you can see that you see a lot of people carrying their life worth on their head, running for their lives. They are, they don't know the next thing that will happen to them. So the best thing is to flee the conflict situation. So you can see them. This is another example of conflict, consequences of conflict. It gives rise to what we call internally displaced persons. So these people are running for their lives. So this last photo is the ultimate consequence of conflict. You can see a young lad being carried by his friends. You can see the background that everything is scattered. There is conflict ongoing. So this is the ultimate price that is paid for a violent conflict. So it is very important that conflict is quickly nipped in the bud so that it will not generate to scenes or situations like this. So from the definitions that the scholars that we reviewed gave, and these conflict scenes, the photos I've shared with you, I'm going to come up with my own robust definition of conflict, and I will define, because of the omission, the other scholars omitted of an conflict affecting an individual. So I'm going to come up with a more robust definition that will take care of all this. And I define conflict as inability of an individual to take a decision or make a choice for a variety of options, and or disagreement between two or more persons or groups over incompatible views, interests, values, ideologies, which, if not resolved, can lead to violent destructions and ultimately death. So you can see from my definition, I've been able to address what the conflict affecting an individual, conflict affecting two or more persons. I've been able to identify the causes of conflict, which are incompatible views, interests, values, and I've also been able to address the consequences of conflict, which is violent destruction and ultimately death, amongst others. So, as a conflict, peace and conflict resolution student, you are expected to come up with your own definition of conflict, so that at any point in time you are asked, what is conflict? You should be able to give it out without thinking. So now our second objective for this lesson is types of conflict. We have several. We have 6 types of conflict, and the first one is intrapersonal conflict. The intrapersonal conflict, as I've explained earlier, is the conflict affecting an individual, and it's also known as a dilemma. It leads to a lot of consequences, like, people losing their minds, they are confused. It leads to depression. It can lead to madness. It can lead to suicide. When people are confused, they don't know the way forward. The next thing they will do is to take their lives. The second type of conflict that we are going to look at is interpersonal conflict. Interpersonal conflict Interpersonal conflict is the conflict between two or more persons. That's you and somebody, you and your sibling, you and your friend. This is between people, not an individual. And the third type of conflict we are going to look at is intergroup conflict. That is in group. They call this type of conflict in group conflict. That's conflict within a group. They are actually a group, but they have factions within the group. So that's conflict within groups. So the Other one we are going to look at is intergroup conflict. And that intergroup conflict looks at group conflict between two different groups. They are not within one group anymore. Two different distinct groups are at loggerheads, over some issues. The next one we are going to look at is national conflict. And national conflict is a conflict that occurs within a nation, a sovereign nation. The last type of conflict we are going to look at is international conflict. International conflict is the conflict that occurs between two or more nations, that's sovereign nations, at loggerhead over ideologies, over beliefs, over view, over their ideas, their values. So a lot of things can cause international conflict. Our last phase of conflict that our last objective for today's lesson is phases of conflict, and we are going to look at the first phase, which is prelude to conflict. This is a situation, where, because we come in from different background, different belief system, different educational background, a lot of, because we are not just the same. So these are possible causes of conflict, because we are not the same. We did not grow up in the same place. Our views are different. So all these things are what, prepares the situation for conflict to arise. Then the next phase is what is called triggering event. And this phase is saying that conflict does not just arise on its own. Something must trigger it. It cannot just start like that. Something must give rise to it. So for instance, like somebody, trying to step on your toes, or somebody abusing you, or somebody being rude to you, is a triggering event. Conflict definitely arise when an event gives rise to it. The next phase of conflict is initiation phase. This initiation phase is actually where the conflict actually takes place. This is where abuses, start, the physical fight starts, arguments start. All those things that's associated with conflict actually start in the initiation phase. The next phase is the differentiation phase. And at this point, the parties in conflict are now asking themselves, okay, why are we fighting? They now try to see, okay, let's look at the reasons for the fight. They voice their differences. They try this phase, but leads to the next and the final phase, which is resolution phase. At the resolution phase, the parties in conflict are already tired. They don't want to go on with the conflict again. So they are ready now to sit down and they will try now to resolve their problems. So this resolution phase is what will lead us to our next lesson, which is insight into conflict resolution and processes. So we have come to the end of the class, but before I leave, I will leave you with this few words. It says, peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to cope with it. So peace does not mean that there's no conflict. There must be conflict. The conflict may be, but how do you, cope with it? How do you handle it? Is what matters. It's what leads to peace. So that is the end of the class. And I want to find out if anybody has any question to ask. Is there any question from anybody or any contribution? No contribution, okay. In the absence of none, I will have to, end this lesson. We'll meet us in the next lesson. So have a great day. Bye.